Okay, what do we call this?
Don't chrono my cross.
Fuck. Don't make me Chrono Cross.
Chrono Cross.
Radical Dreamers 2, Chrono Cross.
Fuck.
Electric Boogaloo.
Chrono Cross, the second Chrono Trigger.
Yeah.
No, the second Chrono Trigger.
Chrono Trigger 2, Chrono Cross. The second Chrono.
We should play Radical Dreamers.
Yeah, we should.
I'm not going to find a way to play Radical Dreamers.
Gino, you should play Radical Dreamers.
We'll tell you all about it.
Yes, you can tell me all about Radical Dreamers.
I'm not going to spoil shit. You're going to play the original sequel. Okay, we're losing material. Let's jump into it, gentlemen's.
Dilly-dally.
Shilly-shally.
That's disgusting.
You're messing up my countdown.
Okay, man, are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go. Now, come on, now crank this motherfucker up.
Break it down like this.
Hello, Internet. Gino, that Bambino Greco here again with another episode of Deep Listens, and today it's time for us to get Chrono Crossed. I was given the authority to pick a game because I raised the most money for the community endurance run other than Giant Bomb staff people this year, and because of that, I was given the authority vested by some other people who come on this show occasionally to pick a game to play that was not a Final Fantasy game. And I said I would like to play a game that's like a Final Fantasy game but isn't a Final Fantasy game, but also is a giant fucking mess. And so I said, hey, you know what would be fun? Let's play Chrono Cross. And joining me on this journey is Chris ZombiePie Redacted.
Okay, so two things for this series of podcasts. I will be doing a new little bit wherein I
Why do I learn about the bits once we start recording?
Famous basketball quotes to encapsulate my opinions of what I've played. So this time, I will say, both teams played hard. Both teams played hard, my man. Both teams played hard. Good night and God bless.
That's a resounding heap of praise you've just given the game.
And I also, one little quick clarification, I actually redid the math after I gave you permission. When I added the amount of money that I raised on the original Pencils of Promise campaign, I actually beat you by about $50.
Well,
you know what? No harm, no foul. But goddamn, this didn't need to happen, and I'm a little cross.
And now here we are. Wait, did you include my money I raised on Pencils of Promise?
I still beat you by like $20, I think.
That math probably doesn't check out, but we'll deal with that later. I am joined also by Jeff Rude, our Final Fantasy pal now.
Yeah, the Final Fantasy boy here, taking advantage of the current unpleasantness to get through some PS1 games I've been carrying around since I was about 14. So here we go with this one, the perfect game.
Yes.
Chrono Cross.
Chrono Cross.
Jeff, why are you here? You could have been preserved. You didn't need to join this death cult, this blood
as I
pact.
said, this is one I've not finished, and it's just been sitting literally in a black IKEA box, and it just looks up at me about every 6 months or so when I'm looking for like a copy of Ridge Racer or something. It's like, you never finished me. And I'm like, shut up. So, yeah, doing it.
So, for those who are not familiar with Chrono Cross, it is the sequel to Chrono Trigger, maybe one of the greatest Japanese role-playing games ever made.
Yep.
And
universally praised.
It makes some choices. The strongest one, I would say, is having almost none of the characters from the original game in it and having an almost completely different setting.
None of the mechanical similarities, none of the callbacks that you would ask for, none of the narrative structure, none
Music
of the gameplay structure, everything.
Basing itself on primarily on a Super Famicom game that like generously like tens of thousands of people had access to. Not played, literally ever had access to.
This game made choices And so I decided I wanted to go back into it because I have fond memories of Chrono Cross. I originally played it maybe 5-6 years ago, and after having seen my friends try to play it on the PlayStation when it was new, I remember it pretty fondly. I had a good time that 6 years ago, and I remember this game being bananas, just absolutely nonstop bananas. And so I thought, what better to inflict upon others than a game that is as inscrutable as I think FF8 is in many places, but also it has 45 playable characters in it. A ton of content, most of which you don't need to see or will not realize that you're missing. I just thought, hey, let's check this out. Let's see how it is. Let's see if it holds up. And boy, I hope it does. So before we get into our feelings on the game, just a reminder, you can get in touch with the show at DeepListensPod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We've got our comment sections, and deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. You can also support the show on patreon.com/deeplistens. So let's start off. So Chrono Cross, Jeffrey.
Sir.
You know about games and history. What's Chrono Cross's deal?
I can't actually sit here and recite my usual horrible, droll, exhaustive, meandering shit about Chrono Cross specifically. So the condensed version of what that would sound like is I want to talk about Radical Dreamers a little bit. I mean, you have to.
You must.
Hell yeah, you do,
Yeah.
Jeff. Let's go.
Okay, so Chrono Trigger, it's this weird joint, Square Enix venture super team thing that is, heaped with praise. Everyone loves it.
The super team is Hironobu Sakaguchi, the Gooch, the Final Fantasy creator, plus Nobuo Uematsu, the audio director of Final Fantasy, and Akira Toriyama, the acclaimed character designer of Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z.
And the entire Dragon Quest series, too. From conception till today. So, it's good. It's a pretty good game. If you were to recommend, one JRPG to people, most people, when posed with that question, fall on, Final Fantasy VII or Chrono Trigger.
6 is also another big pick for a lot of people. But
6 is the stealth bright answer, because it gives you the best of both. But yeah, it's very good. And it got a pretty well done localization for its day, and it was well received over here. It's sort of paved the way for some of why Final Fantasy VII was so successful. 6 also played a role in that. So what's the logical follow-up to this game? To explore some themes and characters and stuff, and it's well, you'd think it's another JRPG. And what happened was instead they were what if we made a choose your own adventure visual novel for the Satellaview, and that's 3 hours long and has the most cursory anything to do with Chrono Trigger at all.
Correct. And then generously, let's say I'm looking at numbers, something 116,378 active players on the Satellaview in March 97, because they have data. Now, Jeff, let's just remind people of the weirdness that is the Satellaview.
Yeah, what is the Satellaview?
It was a satellite-powered console
add-on
produced by Nintendo for the Super Nintendo. It contained, I believe, a megabit of ROM space and an additional 512 kilobits of RAM that would allow players to download games, and you can even download game magazine like Famitsu through a satellite broadcast provided by a Japanese company whose name is
Saint Giga.
Saint Giga. But basically it was what we consider XBLA and PSN. Before wireless internet, they were using satellite broadcast.
Awesome.
So this is the medium that this was broadcast in, solely in Japanese, and the maximum number of people who ever had access to this thing is 120,000 people, less than that. Mm-hmm. So this is not a rip-roaring success and has this weird, dumb cult following and is considered, for what it's worth, basically non-canon.
It's complicated, but yes. As someone who might have been a participant in the fan effort to translate that thing, so I'm in the weird boat of having played Radical Dreamers before I played Chrono Trigger.
What?
Yeah.
How?
Because I didn't play Chrono Trigger, and then I was, like I said, I was a part of an anime fan translation group, and so I, was peer editing poorly. I was not really the person to do that. And so I encountered Radical Dreamers. Gino, you should play Radical Dreamers. So the big thing is that it was directed by a man by the name of Masato Kato, who worked with Studio Gantz, which was, he basically worked for Tecmo on a Captain Tsubasa and Ninja Gaiden game, and then went on to work in anime. And then by the time he had come over to work on Radical Dreamers, he had gone through some pretty bad times. And so Radical Dreamers is fucking dark. I will not spoil anything, but there's a part where a beloved character from Chrono Trigger gets shot in the fucking face.
Is it Robo? Is Robo okay? Because he's not a man.
No, but basically is murdered in front of her adopted daughter.
Oh no. I think I know who that is.
Yeah. So I need
Cross.
to ask some questions as we play this game. But what's really interesting is because this game did not succeed well, because it was on a platform that was basically doomed to fail, They took parts of Radical Dreamers, played around with it, and it's like, okay, we're going to take all of you people that worked on Radical Dreamers. We were just kind of playing around. We want you to now turn this into an actual game. Then, the baby that popped out of the womb was Chrono Cross.
Yeah, so Chrono Cross came out in November 18th, 1999.
In Japan, it should note.
Yeah.
It was part of the weird, summer of RPG in the U.S., so it came out in, late 2000.
Yes.
Here.
So it came out the same year as Vagrant Story was the big one.
And Threads of Fate.
Threads of Fate, Vagrant Story, and Chrono Cross.
And
then what was that
game.
Moments of Mana game that also came out?
The Precious Moments one. The one with all the one.
Yeah, that one. I forget what it was called. Keep talking, Gino. This is going to bug Jeff and I.
Okay. So this game came out, and it is well known among folklore from people who followed GameSpot in the early 2000s that this and I believe Ocarina of Time were the two games to ever receive a perfect 10 for decades.
Yeah.
Using the original algorithm.
Yes. Chrono Cross got 10 reviewers' tilt, 10 audio, 10 gameplay, 10 video. It was 10s across the board, baby.
Well, we got one of those right. Yeah, Jeff Gerstmann on a Bombcast a couple years ago, because this comes up I feel like annually, but he kind of went at length and talked about this and said he spoke to, in email correspondence or something, with the person who wrote this and was like, hey, you sure? I was like, yeah, it's really good. Yeah. And like, okay, well, we're going to go ahead and post this as is. It's pretty cool. We got the second perfect game ever in the history of our website. And they responded back, I never said it was perfect.
No, so the one correction is that he had that correspondence with the reviewer, and he asked for the other person who was the expert on JRPGs, and he said, yeah, it's a great game. It's got wonderful audio, groundbreaking cutscenes, and he's like, okay, we're going to publish as the second perfect score. It's like, I never said it was perfect. But the other butt end of that is people have been trying to find that reviewer. He was a freelancer for the longest time. Nobody can find him.
Oh, no. This got dark very quickly. I would love if this was just some sort of skunkworks project to get Chrono Cross a 10, and then that person vanished off the face of the earth. It was just a pseudonym of a pseudonym of a pseudonym, and now it's gone. But Chrono Cross still stands as one of the few perfect 10s, well, from the early GameSpot days before. Now they give out perfect scores more regularly. But Chrono Cross still stands out. And so with that, it drew me in, and I played it and thought, hey, let's take another crack at it. So Chrono Cross follows a boy named Serge, and it takes place in the tropical archipelago of El Nido. Hey, remember El Nido from Chrono Trigger? No, because it didn't fucking exist. So we're going to go to this new archipelago.
Like you were saying, this is the first time where it's like, this is not a sequel to one of the greatest games ever created. Weird, huh?
Yeah, it's a weird thing.
It's a Hawaiian tropical island that looks nothing like any of the worlds and lands that you visited in Chrono Trigger, which is kind of remarkable because Chrono Trigger has a lot of different distinct locations.
Yes, it's also really interesting that very few of the character designs look anything like Akira Toriyama designs.
Fun fact, El Nido is a real place. Did you know? El Nido is a municipality on the northern point of the island of Mimaropa in the Philippines.
Oh, I did not know that. So we can go there and we'll meet Surge and Kid and Lynx?
Well, it depends on which El Nido we go to.
Okay.
Because one of them is dead, I guess.
That's true. Yeah, we'll get to that. So it follows Surge. You start out in a little village called Arnie. And Surge is just having a regular day. He wakes up. He says hi to his mom. You can go around his town adventuring, meeting citizens. Can even get to recruiting some characters, which is something we will discuss. And he talks to his probably girlfriend. What is her name? Lena?
Oh, I was going to make a joke about which girlfriend, because everybody wants Surge.
It's true. He's very attractive, apparently.
They repeatedly call him attractive, and I look at him as like, okay, fine, sure.
Yeah, it's Lena, correct, is his girlfriend?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, so she wants him to get 3 Komodo dragon scales and make her a sweet necklace. And so there's your first quest. If you go and get those Komodo scales, at the end of that mission, Surge gets teleported to another dimension where he is dead. And this is the crux of the game. We've got 2 parallel universes. Or do we?
Hey, Gino, remember that part of Chrono Trigger where we went through alternate dimensions?
Yes. This is like that.
I don't... this is the first, like, what the fuck, like... Seriously, why even saddle this game with being a sequel to Chrono Trigger? Like, Chrono Trigger already lets you play around the concept of time and, like, the space continuum by using time travel. Why not continue to use time travel instead of alternate universes? Why?
Great question. We'll get to it.
I don't know. Like, for me, it's the fucking drill meme where he's talking to John Lee Hooker and he's just like a boom, 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 boom. It's like, yeah, what else you got? Bang, 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 bang. It's like, fuck this. Stupid. Like, that's how I feel. It's like time travel. I'm like, yeah, that's okay, time travel. And then as soon as something's like, and there's also another dimension, I'm just like, this is garbage. Like Dark did that in the end of season 2, and I was just like, nope, now this is unacceptable.
No, you should watch season 3. It's good.
I've watched all of it. Anyway.
But anyways, yeah, I found, like, so credit to the game. The differences between the 2 parallel worlds are subtle enough to where you actually need to pay attention to the environments and you can pick up clues that you are in the different worlds. But we'll talk about it later. Like, there's musical cues, there's enemy encounters. So good on them. At the same time, I cannot reconcile, and this is going to be an issue that I continue to bring up on this series, I cannot reconcile how discordant it is and completely indistinct from what set apart Chrono Trigger from the rest of the JRPG landscape. At this point, there were plenty of other fucking JRPGs that played around with the idea of alternate parallel universes or going to different planets and shit.
Yeah, but they weren't named Chrono something, so no one played them. Or fewer people played them. So the 2 kind of big hooks with Chrono Cross, well, other than, I guess, 3 hooks. The first hook is it's the sequel to Chrono Trigger. The second hook is that there's dimensional stuff going on with alternate worlds. And the third hook is it's got 45 recruitable characters, some of which are mutually exclusive. You can only have 1 or 2. Like, there are some times where you have to pick which one you're going to recruit. But getting your roster and pulling in these characters is one of the big draws to this game. And many of the characters are kind of standalone goofy goofs, I would say.
Yeah.
They have really unique personalities. Some of them have unique abilities. The mechanics of combat are such that the differences between the characters are not necessarily the most important. Like, the combat differences between them are not necessarily the most important thing, but the, like, fun, goofy assembling your squad I find to be one of the most compelling parts. So one of the very first things you can do once you start a game of Chrono Trigger is you can recruit Poshul, a talking dog.
Yeah, animals talk in this world.
Well, some animals talk in this world. Some animals just need to be killed.
Yeah.
But Poshul, you can find a Hecarim bone, a bone of a dog monster that you can fight. And if you find this bone and talk to Poshul, Poshul will be like, "Oh my god, you got a bone? Can I have it?" And then if you give Poshul the bone, they will join your party.
Which is immediately kind of useful because you double your damage output or whatever.
Yeah, he's useful in the very beginning level to where the other option is Surge goes through this entire dungeon by himself, which is no bueno.
It's less bueno.
Yeah.
You can definitely get through it. Poshul's the first recruitable character. You can also, depending on how you talk to Lena, you can set up for recruiting her. You can set up for recruiting Mojo, who is a talking voodoo doll.
So this is the one thing to where I'm going to push back on Gino. I actually absolutely hate the recruitment aspect of this game. And the part of the reason is that it's completely inscrutable, it's unforgiving, and the way that you recruit some of the characters is completely ass backwards. And that part can't really be denied. It's a common complaint about Chrono Cross. It's like, oh, I talked to this character, and now I completely fucked myself, and I can't get this other character, and there's no real good hints. Like, it's counterintuitive how you recruit characters. Period.
Yeah, some of the characters are very much follow a guide and then you can recruit them. If you try to play this game straight up, it's going to be hard for you to know. Like, Lena was a character that I missed the first time I played through this game because to recruit her, you need to have certain dialogue options when you talk to her in Surge's homeworld, and then after you transfer to the other world, you meet the, doppelganger version of Lena, who exists in a world where Surge is dead. If you talk to her at first, she's like, "Oh man, you're acting like you look kind of like this kid I used to know, but I don't think you're him because he died. Go check out his grave." And when you check out his grave, you meet a lady thief named Kid, and she'll ask to join your party. And you can let her join your party, and if you do, then you lose Lena permanently because you'll have a different lady friend.
The other reason why I hate the character recruitment system is that the fucking majority, and Gino, this is something that even you conceded in Discord, 90% of these characters are straight up trash.
Trash in what way? Because I think there
are straight up characters that you recruit and it's like you're very useful in one specific situation or you're useful in this very specific case, and also I still have to fucking take the time to equip you with all of these elements, which we'll talk about later, and play around with this futsy real menu-based system and this equipment system, and there's so many characters that it's a pain in the ass to manage.
Yeah. I mean, okay, Jeff's defense of everything which you said, which is basically true, is yes, and keep in mind this stems from a visual novel-ish Satellaview game that is basically poke around with this fun toy that's 3 hours long that we made in 3 months and get to an ending. It's okay. It's a choose-your-own-adventure kind of thing. I think if you approach it like that, where it's a story where you don't necessarily need to try to get or find everything. In fact, you basically cannot the first time you play it.
You definitely cannot.
And you just sort of let things happen, which is maybe not the best way to phrase that. It's okay. And if you start from that point and then realize there's 45 characters in this game and you do some back of napkin math, there's about 80,000 different combinations of characters that you could plausibly have at the outer edges of this thing. You can't balance for that. The end result, and I think we're going to get to this point, is this game's actually pretty easy.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's almost laughably easy. So it kind of doesn't matter. You can roll with trash and you can get through. But
Yes.
anyway, yeah, the recruitment thing is
Yeah.
fun, and if you want to get everything, just have a guide. And if you want to play it like me, just don't fucking bother because it's just let it tell its silly story. It's okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like,
I'll
because you're not
agree
going
to
to
that.
see everything.
It doesn't really matter. Like, pick the crew you want to roll with. Pick the crew you find fun. Like, if you want the intrinsically best characters, that's fine. You can look up a guide and see who they are. But Surge plus Mojo and Poshul can get you through the entire game. You don't need to find anyone else. You could pick, hell, even some of the worst characters in the game can get you through most combat. Because at the end of the day, the combat system is very forgiving. You get a lot of options to play with. Most enemies don't really threaten you in terms of damage either. It's pretty generous with healing items. You'll be fine.
Speaking of ways how this game honors its namesake, let's talk about the element system and how you play this goddamn thing.
Yeah, so original Chrono Trigger had a very straightforward element system. You level up, you get spells, you spend magic to cast spells, and then it also had a combo attack system where...
I still would argue that combo system, like comboing special abilities, is one of the best mechanics of Chrono Trigger, and I wish more games would borrow that idea.
Well, just wait till you get to do it in Chrono Cross. That system exists in Chrono Cross, but only really specific combos. This game, the way that it works is instead of just having an attack button and then like a spells option in your menu, you have attacks, but there are 3 levels of attack, like 1, 2, and 3. You have a meter that fills up to 7, basically, segments, and you can spend sections of that meter to do certain actions. So you can spend 1 section on a 1 power attack, 2 sections on a 2 power attack, 3 sections on a 3 power attack. And every time you connect with the enemy, you increase the percentage likelihood that you'll hit with your next attack, and you also add to your magic meter. So you basically build up your MP by hitting the opponent. After you've hit them enough times, and fill up your magic meter to wherever you want to cast a spell, you can go to your magic menu and then cast a spell of at least however many bars you've got of MP juice. And spells always cost, I believe, 7 bar segments. So if you started with a full bar, it'll take you down to 0. But you can actually spend bar you don't have. So if you have 1 bar left, you can spend 7, and then you'll go to -6. And so that character will kind of have to wait until their bar fills up again. And you can keep taking actions with the other characters.
It's an ATB system that you can basically borrow from.
Yeah, you can spend the future.
Like, it's neat. It's not necessarily, like, mind-blowing. It's like, oh, it's kind of cool. The neat thing is that you can, like, cash out, as you said, and wind up with, like, negative ATB for a while.
Yeah, and if you spend down your meter too much, like if all of your characters have spent down their meter, it's entirely possible that your enemy will get to attack you, like, once or twice before you get to respond because your characters have put themselves into timeout, basically.
I understand everything that you're trying to say. Raise your hand if you didn't feel like, for the majority of the time you were playing this game, that you were not just button mashing whenever you got into random encounters or into the encounters in this game. Because that's what I did 90% of the time, was just click, 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 battle's done, let's move on.
Yeah, as I said, it's easy, and that'll totally work. I am probably optimizing, like, exactly 1 step above that, where I'm just, like, chaining up to, like, 1, 2, 3, or even, check this out, 1, 1, 2, 3. And then the next go around, do a spell. And then the next go around, defend.
You can defend?
Yeah, you can defend.
Oh, wow.
You use the special abilities, you'll exhaust your stamina meter, and you will be whiffing attacks because your accuracy sometimes is connected to how much of your stamina you have left. So defending will restore almost all of your stamina meter, especially after, because sometimes with those special attacks, especially the character-specific ones, it'll say stamina -6, or it'll be in the red. So defend, and it will instantly restore back to full.
Okay.
It progresses time in a way where the enemies might move, all dependent on, like, speed of individual characters.
So we'll talk about the other big issue that we have with this, but the one thing that I really dislike about this system, and it's gonna be a recurring problem that I have with this game in general. Well, one, it's super slow, which we'll talk about later. But the other thing is that it really does distill these characters, despite their kind of initial differences in combat utility. And we'll talk about the color system because, Jesus fucking Christ.
I mean, it's barely a thing.
It's barely a thing. But it's the fact that basically all these characters play exactly the same, whereas in Chrono Trigger, each character had a different mechanic or kind of a little mini game that defined them and how you got maximum utility out of them, and that's really not the case here.
I think this was a direction that Square had already started going down, even in like 6 in a way, when you start fiddling around with espers. But I mean, like 7 has this problem, 8 has
does
this
8.
problem, 9
Doesn't.
yeah, basically does not. 10, 100% has this problem. They wind up homogenizing characters by making the game so modular. I don't like. I'm not going to sit here and defend that. I'll just say it's like seems like those games that are so modular and so like fiddly in a way, and have these like kind of easily swappable characters, are also the ones that people really like.
Yeah, I mean, it makes them more replayable if you're going to be able to fiddle around with all these knobs. Like, you've got 45 characters to play with. That means that you've got a lot of replayability inherent in that if people enjoy playing with the different characters and think that that's meaningful.
But yeah, you are totally right. Like I said, half the reason you can play with trash, as we mentioned, is because you can just kind of staple whatever spells you want to trash.
Yeah.
And outside some specific abilities, they're functionally as good.
They're close. I mean,
They're
some
close.
of the characters have really shitty base stats, and so even
Yeah,
if you give them the best spells possible and play them correctly, they're just going to do less damage than the good characters. Like Surge, I find completely houses most of the other characters in physical damage and magic damage because he's super balanced.
And the number of magic slots he gets at the higher levels is bonkers. He gets a lot of slots to fill. He gets more than the fucking mage that I got, which we'll talk about later. And I'm still salty about the character you guys made me pick.
Weird.
I guess, I mean, let's just jump into it. The big recurring problem I think most of us have is that this combat system, despite a few, like, attempts to inject some flair and cinematics here and there, and I did like the character-specific abilities, but the big recurring problem is this combat is goddamn slow. Like, oh my god. Like, even battles against the mooks or, like, things where you're, in theory, encountering vicariously, purposefully, so as that you can get some EXP, like, going out and doing battles is just slow. These battles...
The animations are slow. It's just
the animations are slow. And the game really does like to interrupt you. Like, I mean, we all had this happen where you have a character, you're queuing up their attacks, then one of the enemies interrupts your character's mid-animation so that they stop attacking, enemy attacks you, then you have to re-queue up what you had previously planned for all over again, select the target, select the attack percentage, done. And then, if you kill a character while attacking it, the game doesn't just automatically have you switch over to the next target. It has you stop, open up the menu, select your attacks all over again, and then select the, it doesn't sound like a lot, but it's one of those things where you constantly have to do it over and over again, and that adds up.
Yeah, this game is even worse than Final Fantasy IX in the, oh my god, this is over-animated, and it looks good. Like, the battle mode runs in 480i, which is not super common. Like, Tekken 3 managed to run at 480i, like, most of the time, and it's one of the best-looking games on the whole system. This game runs at 480i, but it doesn't run at 60 hertz. It probably runs more at, like, 20, 30...
20, 30, I'd say, yeah.
Chugs, and just takes for fucking ever.
Yeah,
like,
there are times where I felt like, it's like, wow, I'm running this on a computer, and it's like, why is this chugging? Am I running 20 tabs of Chrome? It's like, oh no, wait, this game just doesn't know how to handle. At the time, this game did not know how to handle all of this memory and like all of this stuff that's on the screen. Which, I mean, I know Gino really loves the background work here, but there's so much detail, there's so much like fiddly stuff. There's so much going on in everything that you interact with, the environments, backgrounds, and characters, that it's overwhelming. It's sensory overload for me, and I just found it to where I couldn't ever, like, take a breath.
Oh, I love how dense these environments are. Like, there are only a few towns, actually, in this game. There's only a few settings, actually, as you keep playing. And so having each of them be super dense allows you to kind of get a sense of where these places are, what their histories are, how things are changing as events are unfolding, and especially in relation to, like, the two different dimensions. Like, what are the things that make these dimensions different? Because the central conceit here is here are two worlds where the only difference between them is whether this one kid lives or dies, and kind of a butterfly effect off of that. That's interesting to see. Like, there's a lot of different spots where if you talk to someone in Surge's home world, you'll see them living a completely different life, maybe even with different jobs, different roles than the other world. Like Mojo, the character that you can recruit, the voodoo doll. In Surge's world, the person who eventually in the other world will have Mojo is this successful fisherman who's got a legendary tale and many happy kids, happy family, and he's caught all these incredible creatures. And he gives you this shark necklace, this shark fang necklace, and he says, look, if I have a feeling that there's another version of me out there somewhere, which is a little on the nose, but he says, if you meet some other version of me and they don't seem happy, just show them this necklace and let them know, hey, this is what you should have been doing. And so when you go into the other world, you see this fisherman who gave up fishing because Surge's father, I guess, lost a son, which is Surge, and they drowned at sea. So this guy said, okay, I'm not going to go out to sea anymore. So instead he gets way into mysticism, just like the most abstract understanding of what mysticism is. So he's got like voodoo dolls and Egyptian statues and totems, like all sorts of random nonsense to try and give him luck and happiness. And when you show him this necklace, he basically starts to question whether his choices were correct, and then says, no, I had to make the right choice. There was no other way I could have lived my life. And Mojo, this voodoo doll, comes to life and says, nah, dog, you made a bad choice. You're a loser. I'm sick of listening to you. I am going with this kid. And this voodoo doll comes to life and joins your party because he's sick of the whining of this loser. And it's a lot of stuff like that. Like, you can go to one world, see how someone's living their life, like what's going on. And there are locations that are meaningfully different, like the Hydra swamps.
Yeah, it's a poisonous swamp in the another world.
And in the home world, it's not poisonous because a creature did not get hunted to extinction.
Yeah.
So, sure, I'll give you that. I guess the only thing that I would say is that the structure of this game, because it's not like Chrono Trigger, where it's deliberative and you actually physically transport yourself through different timelines, you actually have to go out of your way to not be on the mainline pathway. Like, the Hydra Forest is something that you have to actively seek out.
Yeah, until the story makes you go there.
Until the story makes you go there. But, one, I just really did not like the structure of this game having an overworld rather than Chrono Trigger structure. I found that the overworld here was... I mean, I actually like the overworld in 7. I even like the overworld in 8. I don't like the top-down isometric style of overworld. I like it where it's like a third-person action game. But also, like, it's not very interactable, and it's hard to tell how you get from one place to the other, which is tough when you're trying to complete some of these quests.
You're running around on top of a JPEG at the end of the day, even if you can't figure out where you're supposed to go. It's a linear path. There's actually a secret area you can go to in the early game, but I don't know if either of you went there.
I did not. I'm actually, if you want to spoil it for me, that's fine. But
I mean, it's not that huge right now. There's the dragon. I think it's the Dragon Falls or Ancient Dragon Falls. It's something like that. So if you go to, there's kind of this lagoon at the center by Arnie Village.
Oh.
If you go to that waterfall that's by that village and you click on it, you'll enter the waterfall. And there's some freaky temple in there.
Huh.
Really cool art. The game doesn't send you there until super duper late, but there's nothing in there that you can't, like, there's nothing to get there, except in one version, all of the demi-humans are gone, so the place is deserted. And then in another world, demi-humans still exist, so you see them hanging out at this temple.
Interesting.
I guess that's cool. I feel like the big problem is like a lot of this is not easy to parse out or figure out. Like, there's not a clue, there's not a tell in the environment that any of this even exists. I will say I do like the fact that the NPC interactions, I think we talked about it on Discord, which you should join, how the NPC interactions are actually critical in terms of like getting early story building and foreshadowing of, what you can expect. And so I actually enjoyed interacting with the NPCs in this game.
Yeah, I think that they're generally well written and have fun things to say. They make the world pretty vibrant. I think that if it wasn't for the little hints and winks, like seeing how these two worlds are the same but different, I don't know that this game would hold up quite as well. But seeing, like, in Arnie Village, in Surge's home world, there's a lecherous old lady, I think? No, old man who's ogling like a dancer poster. And then when you jump to the other world, there's a lecherous old woman staring at a Rockstar's poster.
Yeah.
Like the chef in Arnie Village, there's a gender swap depending on which version you're in. In one version of Arnie Village, there's a poet who's like just telling you these just overwrought poems that she just makes you sit there and listen to. And then if you go to the other world, you talk to her, she's like, oh, I gave up poetry a long time ago. What are you talking about? And so you see all these little differences. Like the leader of Arnie Village is different depending on which world you're in. Poshul stays the same, though. Poshul will just join you regardless.
God bless Poshul.
Yeah, what a good boy. So you get the Komodo dragon scales. You go to the other world. You meet Kid because you visit your own grave. Freaky. And when you visit your own grave, you get attacked by some members of the Acadia Dragoons because they were told to take out the person who shows up to look at this grave because there's a ghost. And they attack you because you are this ghost. And you are introduced to one of the best recurring characters in any Square game, Salt and Pepor.
Who are basically Biggs and Wedge.
They're basically Biggs and Wedge. One of them's tall and skinny. The other one's short and stocky. They are Logos and Ormy. They are Biggs and Wedge. Just any of those like two characters who pal around with each other. They are Reno and Rude. They are exactly the same as all of those characters. They're Raijin and Fujin.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned that there's Kid, and I guess now's the time to talk about it. This game has accents as localization. And,
well,
boy.
Kid's Australian.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
The localization in this game is, I mean, it's of the era where in order to show the distinct differences between these characters, we have to interpret accents phonetically and in the most over-the-top manner as possible. So you meet a French person where instead of S, you see the letter Z. I like Kid's localization. I think it's fine, other than the fact that she oscillates between Cockney and Australian.
She does. It's great.
It's weird. But I've said this before. This game came out the same year as Alexander O. Smith's translation of Vagrant Story, and so there was a better way already possible of doing this. Like, and Ted Woolsey, even though he had left Square, he probably would have looked at this and say, no, I reject this. You're not allowed to publish this. You should be ashamed of yourself.
Well, I mean, they're going for the sort of Japanese storytelling style where you just kind of change the end of a word here or there to just let you know, okay, this kid's extreme, so he says zay. Okay, this person's dainty, so they say nay. And just kind of changing it a little bit.
I'll drop the issue, Gino. Is there going to be a comical New Yorker accent coming up?
Oh, man, I don't know.
Is there a Brooklyn accent? Is there a Jersey?
There are multiple French accents.
Yeah, but I want a good old. I want someone to talk like Harley. I was disappointed when there was the Harlequin and she didn't talk like Harley Quinn.
That's true. There's a surfer dude. I don't know that there's a New Yorker though. You know, I don't think there is.
Feel robbed.
But there's a surfer. You got a lot of things to choose from. There's a lot of fun zany characters. Poshul talks like a dog.
Yeah, Poshul does the baby talk that Square Enix was really obsessed with during this era, in which we talked about in Final Fantasy XI.
Yeah, kids
For some
and dogs.
reason, baby talk was a thing that Square Enix really liked.
So yeah, you encounter Kid. She can join you for the fight against Salt and Pepor or not. I like that Salt and Pepor say shake all the time.
Yeah.
Let's shake them. They just force that into everything. Another thing worth mentioning is the leveling system. So after you beat bosses in this game, you will get a star, and that will cause all the members of your party to get some stat boosts, whether they're in your party or not.
Yeah. Mercifully.
Yes,
mercifully, because
Dear
Thank
Christ,
merciful
imagine
Jesus,
if it
I
wasn't.
don't have to do. Yeah,
Oh,
thanks
yeah.
merciful Jesus, I don't have to do this like Final Fantasy IV or like Final Fantasy X, where I have to constantly swap people in and out. Like mercifully, everyone levels up the same.
Well, everyone gets their initial star level the same. So when you beat a boss, everyone gets leveled up. But
Yeah.
you can actually get additional stat bonuses by winning fights with party members after you beat a boss. But
Sure.
there's no transparent experience that you're getting. You just need to have a person in your party and survive a fight. And after like 2 or 3 battles after a boss fight, they will cap out, basically. And they won't get any more experience from being in your
Sure.
party. So the leveling is very forgiving. You can make some of your characters a little better if you want. Like, you can just focus on a main party, and that's fine. If you want to max out everyone, you need to be swapping people in and out constantly. But like we said, this game is easy as hell. You don't need to do that. It's only if you really want to. So it's a pretty forgiving leveling system. Almost all of the points that matter come from the boss fight. The rest of the bonuses, like, they're significant, but they're not big enough to ruin your character if you don't go for them. So after you defeat the Arcadia Dragoons, you're told, hey, we should go to Termina, which is kind of a bigger town, because maybe they'll know what you need to do, Serge. So you can go up through Fossil Valley, yep.
Yeah.
You go up through Fossil Valley. There you can recruit... Well, you can't recruit any characters in Fossil Valley, but you can set up some recruits. So you can find a egg there that will let you recruit a character later on. Do we want me to say who it is? Who the egg gets you?
Go ahead.
Draggy, a baby dragon.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
You can recruit a baby dragon?
Hell yeah.
I did not recruit the baby dragon.
You need to
Oh,
go...
you can't
You don't
yet.
get... So you need to get the egg in Fossil Valley.
I got the egg.
You got the egg? Okay. Then eventually, when you go back to your homeworld, there will be a location where you can hatch that egg. Into a
Okay.
baby dragon. You can also get a skull,
Yeah, I got the skull, definitely.
and that skull eventually becomes Skelly, a skeleton clown,
Yep.
who's horrifying.
I also talked to Skelly's grandma, and
Yes.
he did not want me to show him to his grandma.
Yeah, it's weird that he just... So you meet Skelly's grandma, who doesn't have good vision, and she says, "Oh, my grandson Skelly went to become a clown. Oh, I hope he's happy. He always made me laugh." And then the skull in your pocket just starts, like, crying to itself. And if you try to show Skelly to the grandma is like, "What the heck is that? Don't show me that gross thing." Skelly gets sad. So yeah, you eventually need to find all of Skelly's bones, and you can put them together to be a character.
I guess, I mean, there are 2 mechanics. We already kind of touched upon it. We'll talk about it next episode, but the element system is trash. The other thing that I think that is just trash and I actively dislike is how this game manages healing.
Why?
I absolutely hate this heal system. I hate the
Why?
fact that I keep hitting accidentally heal all characters after a battle when I don't want
Why?
them to do that, and then
Why?
I use all my healing spells.
They have 2 options. One is heal all characters without using consumables, and one is heal all characters using consumables. There's 2 options. Just pick the one that...
I just
And-
keep saying, "Oh God, I want this menu system to go away so that I can just move forward faster." And so I just keep smashing the button, and then I click the wrong thing.
But the default one is the one that heals without using expendable items. You're doing something wrong. I don't know why. But if you just mash X, you will just heal your characters with the elements that they've charged up. They won't use any of the single-use items.
I will say I don't like how. So if you use tablets are consumable items, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not clear which is consumable items and which ones are just straight spells. Like I feel like it's not clear at all.
The consumable ones have a use count on them.
Yeah,
Okay.
they stack.
It's just okay. Then I do want to talk about this. This element, this color coding shit, is trash. Like, I get that it's completely innocuous and you can completely ignore it to get through the game, but look at that screen on the battle screen and, like, all of this UI shit that's completely incomprehensible. There's, like, these 3 overlapping circles. There's, like, the meter that fills up. There's just so much utility on your screen that's just complete, like, nonsense.
Well, the only thing that matters about that circle is whatever the outer ring of the circle is, you'll get a damage bonus if you use an element of that type. Characters will also be slightly stronger with spells of their own element. So, like, Potial is Earth element, so if you use Earth spells with Potial, it will be better than if you used a Wind spell with Potial. And they are slightly more vulnerable to the opposing element. So Potial is weak to Wind because he is Earth. And the only other thing to know about that circle is whatever the last spell you cast is, that color will go to the center of the circle. So it just always radiates out. So every 3 spells, like whatever was in the middle will get pushed to the outer ring. And there are some spells that require you to have the entire ring be one color, but that's not something that you need to concern yourself with all that often. Like, they're super attacks, and they're generally not needed because this game is easy as hell. So, like, that's all there is to the system. It's not very well explained, but it doesn't... The game's easy as hell, so I don't know how much it matters.
Yeah, it's easy as hell. It's just one of those mechanics that feels like they thought it was a good idea. Like the crafting system in this game. I've not invested any time or money in the crafting system. It seems completely ancillary, as was most of the crafting systems of Square games of this era. It's just, it has a lot of mechanics that just don't feel like they were fully thought out.
Yeah, you've got a crafting system to make your items instead of just buying them, and some items go to certain characters because some characters use swords. Some of them use... Surge has a unique weapon. It's like a thief blade from FF9, like the two-sided... He's a Darth Maul.
Yes.
Some characters use their fists, so they've got a different weapon. Some characters use... I think it's mostly those 3. Oh, no. There's definitely, like, a ladle and, like, really unique, like, axes and things. So they have
He
different...
uses a wooden spoon.
Yeah. So you need to make those specific types of weapons for the specific characters. So if you want to power up your empty-handed fighters, they can share weapons, but you can't pass that weapon to someone who uses a sword. You need to make a sword. Same thing with armor. Some characters can wear different types of armor. And then there's 3 accessory slots that you can equip as well. It's more annoying than anything. Like, I found that I was pretty resource capped and couldn't make weapons for everyone, so I just always make a weapon for Surge because he's always going to be in your party.
You are so resource poor in this first 4 to 5 hour chunk. Like, you are so resource poor that you feel like you really can't explore some of these characters.
Yeah, or at least you can't give them better weapons. They'll be as good as they are. So once you get to Termina, there's a few interesting things. One, if you get Lena... you go to the shop, she'll get harangued by the shop owner, making fun of her for taking her boyfriend to the store. So that's kind of charming. You also can go to a fortune teller who will read the fortunes of all of the characters in your party and will give you little hints about them. Like Mojo, the fortune teller just lets Mojo know that there's someone who is very dear to you who lives in Termina and you should find them. And you can find a scarecrow, like a training dummy, and Mojo will think it's his brother, which I found very charming. You meet Korcha, who's like this punk kid who runs a boat and is trying to rescue demi-humans. Like, there's a mermaid who's locked up.
Yeah.
And trying to save her.
You meet the people, the dragoon, the kind-hearted dragoon.
Glenn.
Wants the flower, and then he prays with What's-Her-Bucket by the sword because everybody died.
So there's Glenn, who is not Frog from Chrono Cross, but named...
Yeah, fuck that.
The same as him. You meet Lady Viper. I forget what her first name is.
Hey, Gino, don't spoil it for me. This is just going to be one of those times where, as someone who played Radical Dreamers, I just want to know if this answer is answered in Chrono Cross. Do you find out who Kid's mom was?
I'm not going to tell you that.
No, just tell me if the game tells you the answer.
Yes.
Just say yes or no.
I know.
Okay.
I know.
So we got it. I'm excited to see if they change that.
They have an answer. You meet Glenn. So a bunch of these characters, almost every character, if they have a character portrait, is recruitable. Almost all of them. It's pretty absurd.
Yeah.
And we get one of the big forks in the road at Termina because there are 3 ways you need to break into Viper Manor, and there are 3 ways to do it. So each of us have picked a different way.
Sure.
I went the hardest route by taking Pierre, the swordsman. Pierre is a French swordsman who is a fraud, and he has the hero medal from Chrono Trigger, and he's trying to use that to join the Viper Manor Dragoons to fill the gap of a Dragoon who recently died. And so for him, you need to recruit him, you need to get him his medal, and then he'll join you, and you can go in through the front door. That is the plan. Jeff, you recruited the Rockstar?
I also recruited Pierre.
What?
I'm sorry. I've the last time I played this, which was in the Obama administration, I definitely recruited Nikki, and boy, I remember that very well. Yes, the character Nikki. How could one forget? Yes, the time I spent with Nikki is some of the best video. I don't fucking remember. Nikki's like some weird Marilyn Manson stand-in rock star who's supposedly
Six.
during a show. Yeah, Nikki Sixx, the drummer from.
I
Motley
actually
Crue,
wish I
a
had done
topical
Nikki,
reference.
and I'll tell you why. Because he's of the three characters, he feels like he's the most connected with the world and the story. Because there's posters of him, characters remark upon him.
He's
So I actually regret not getting Nikki.
Yeah,
Because I ended up getting what you said it was the easiest option. I ended up getting fake Magus,
Guile.
Guile, Magus, and I'm so angry at that choice for a couple of reasons. First off, this guy is supposed to be a mage, and he has the worst magical slot situation I've ever seen. He only gets like one per level. It's trash.
That's not true. So Guile is a character who is at his strongest. He has the strongest late game magic slots. He starts out with very few magic slots, but he is super top heavy. So you're going to get like tons and tons of slots later on. And he also has some of the best abilities straight up. Like his unique character ability, Wand In, does crazy damage and can insta-kill. He also has a character ability that can multi-hit. Like, it hits multiple targets. Almost no one has that sort of ability. And he just has insane base stats. He's just really strong. Pierre has terrible base stats and only becomes acceptable after you get him a specific sword, a specific set of armor, and his hero medal. And then he becomes acceptable.
I hear that once you get all of this stuff and you buff him properly, he's actually the most powerful character in the game, or one of them.
I have not heard that. I've heard that he is okay if you do those things. But Nikki is just kind of okay. He's a water character. But depending on which of these characters you get, it will actually lock out some other characters down the line. Like, I don't know if you can get Mickey, the dancer, if you don't get Nikki, because they're a duo. I don't know who else is tied to specific people.
Yeah, and more to the point, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It really does not matter because, again, this game is super easy and inconsequential with its mechanics and how you play it. You know, there's going to be certain parts of the game that are easier for me, certain parts of the game that are easier for Gino and Jeff.
Yeah,
Yes.
like, this was supposedly the hardest way to get into the mansion, and, like, the hardest thing was fights take longer because Pierre sucks shit at everything.
But every time Pierre talks, I laugh. Sacre bleu.
He has a really funny. I like, again, Gino pointed it out. Like, there's already a character who has a French accent, and I only have patience for one, so I'm good.
Sorry, there's going to be two.
Fuck, what?
There's multiple French accents. Yeah, there's two. There's two characters with fake French accents in this game, and they have different fake French accents. So Pierre, if you pick him, you go in through the front door. They immediately realize he's a chump, and you can make him play dead, and then it attracts more guards. You can actually make the assault a little bit more difficult, and then after you defeat some guards, Salt and Papour attack you with their large mook ketchup, and that fight is pretty good because he immediately murders Surge, just like kills him, and then if you survive for long enough, he will use a move where he picks up Salt and uses him as a club to knock Papour into your crew, and they both die as a result of the move that he does. And then you're fighting
Salt and Papour, your tutorial, are the times that we've had them so far have been tutorial boss fights to say, hey, you could get through this boss fight if you change the color, and it's like, I don't give a shit. I'm just going to hit you in the face until you're dead.
That works. You didn't have to fight Salt and Papour?
No, I had to deal with the cliff with the rocks, and I hated it. It's bad. I hated that.
Yeah, you got to go through the forest.
I had to climb the cliff and then I had to fight like a weird eagle person,
And then we got to Viper Manor.
which I guess is the first true dungeon in the game. And goddamn, it seems so simple on paper. Infiltrate a mansion. They managed to stretch this like infiltrating a mansion task to a literal breaking point to where it felt like I put in a day's worth of my life to get through that, when in reality it was just 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah, it's a bit long. We meet a lot of characters who are recruitable eventually, like all of the Arcadia Dragoons. We meet Lucia,
Yeah.
the mad scientist. You meet Neofeo, an experiment
I agree
creature.
with you there. I like the introductions of characters that are obviously going to join your party. Don't get me wrong. The problem is that the structure of this level,
Yeah, you're
the
doubling
going
back a
up
lot.
and down, the monochromatic structure, and then just the way that it bakes in forced encounters, which, again, is very antithetical to Chrono Trigger, which was opt into as much or little combat as you want.
Yeah, you get ambushed a
A
lot.
lot.
In this.
I mean, I can't even begin to list the number of times those weird torches dropped from the roof or the ceiling to force me into a battle that I knew I could win, but it just took a long time.
Yeah.
Goddamn
But-
ghost-haunted doors. Those battles aren't hard. They just take goddamn forever.
Yeah, the nexus of the combat is pretty easy and deterministic in the sense that I already know I'm going to win, and that it keeps bludgeoning you with it over the head over and over again with these slow, like, I don't know, it feels like busy work, and there's an awful lot of busy work.
Yep.
Yeah, it kind of goes against why people, as far as I know, enjoy playing video games in a way. Like, I don't know. It does nothing to advance the plot to like sit and fight the same things like 10 times in a row, and it takes like
Yeah.
20 minutes to do it.
And especially because you don't get experience after like the first few of them you kill, so it's not
Right.
like
Yeah.
you're getting additional rewards. You just sometimes get items that can be used for crafting or for healing.
A
Well,
tablet.
even then, at a certain point, they stopped dropping loot. There were times where it's like, I just had this forced encounter and it gave me nothing.
Yeah, so it's
Great.
It's not great. Definitely not.
I will say, definitely a fan of the battle theme in this game. And also,
Yeah,
the
it's
music in this game. Holy crap,
good.
it's great. I'm not a huge fan, and I've talked about this before, I'm not a huge fan of CD quality music, just for personal reasons. But there's no denying that the music in this game is amazing.
Yeah, it's a standout. I would say that the soundtrack to Chrono Cross is probably one of the top 10, 15 video game soundtracks. It punches
Yeah.
up there with a lot of the greatest Final Fantasy soundtracks. Like, I think that being of the era when themes were really central and specific melodies instead of kind of going towards the more cinema-driven scores that we saw in the later 2000s and in a lot of cases also the 2010s, it has only like maybe 30 songs in it, but each one is really iconic and memorable.
I think it is the single best soundtrack on the PlayStation 1. Like, by maybe a light year. Like, it's fucking incredible.
Yeah.
Almost from start to finish. The fucking work that was poured into making this thing so good, and there's so much of it. Like, there's hours of music in this thing.
Yeah.
And it's like almost like the worst stuff on this track is like better than, but it's, I can't praise it enough. I will just go out of my gourd. Like, I will suffer through this fucking game, which has all the myriad problems that we have laid out, just to listen to these tunes. Like, it is 100% worth it. It's amazing.
Arnie Village, Time Scar.
The overworld theme, just the intro, just the
Yep.
fucking intro cutscene to this game, just like
The overworld theme.
take a bath in that shit. Oh, yeah, it's
But to
amazing.
borrow a term that Jeff uses when describing this might have the biggest delta between the quality of the music and the quality of the actual video game.
yes, I agree.
I mean, yeah,
Um,
if it's
The
if
only
it's the best,
time that I can think of a game where the delta is even bigger is maybe the Super Nintendo Waterworld game, which has an amazing soundtrack, and that game is straight up trash.
Silver Surfer for the NES. Like, it's up
Yeah.
there. The game is not that bad. But in terms of, that gap, it's right up there.
I think the only game that's anywhere close, that Waterworld game.
Buck Bumble.
Oh, fuck yeah, Buck Bumble. Shoot that shit straight into my veins.
You know, when you think high quality music but like low quality game, Buck Bumble. Okay, so at the end of this section, once you get through all the bullshit, you're introduced to Lynx and Harl, and maybe they're going to be bad guys that we need to care about. Who knows?
Who can say?
Now, it is at the 4-hour mark where you get your first real taste of what the narrative hooks and conceit of this game is. You explore this mansion, and eventually you go up some shit, and you encounter the Time Lord, the Prophet of Time, and some girl named Marcy. And this is when I think I started to say, yes, this hook me up, shoot this directly into my vein. This cutscene with this Time Lord where everything goes psychedelic and it's super crazy. I was like, I'm back on board. Give me more of this, please.
Oh, you don't even know where we're going yet.
I'm fine with this game getting bananas crazy. Like I said, you've told me that this is the only game that will shoot me with that rush, that like Final Fantasy VIII, we're going to the goddamn space temple.
We're going to the space pimple.
Tomb to an evil sorceress that's next to a planet or a moon full of monsters. Like, shoot this stuff into my veins.
Remember when the world starts to melt in FF8?
Remember when what's-his-name performed a special summon that was a black hole, and you saw your characters get sucked into the black... That was Lynx?
Griever?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this game is going to get that crazy, and I can't wait for it.
I want it because so much of this first 4 hours was just like me fiddling my thumbs like, when is this going to... I want that rush. I want that rush, Gino.
You're going to hit up that kind of rush. Just wait.
But anyways, why don't you summarize like what the Time Lord says and stuff?
Someone else summarize.
Because I actually didn't understand it. It's like split dimensions. You died. This is a different dimension.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah,
go back to whence you came.
Perfectly honest. Yeah, pretty much.
Yep, pretty much. Different dimensions, and I'll try to sum this up more as we go to try and make sense of this as we have questions. But this is the pretext. This is the most straightforward the game will ever be. Congratulations, you've seen the easy part. From here, it's only crazier. So with that, I think that's it for our first episode covering Chrono Cross. Thank you, ZP.
Yeah, I look forward to injecting more talk of Radical Dreamers into this podcast, and also, Gino, you should play Radical Dreamers, please.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, thanks for having me along. You know, can we go back to Final Fantasy IX next? I never got to that one. It's sitting in my bin.
Are you joking?
I mean,
I'll play Final Fantasy IX.
You know, want to play it with me? Want to be my friend?
I can do that.
Be
I can
my
play
friend.
that game again. I could be convinced to play that game again.
It's slow as shit. Thanks for having me, Gino.
You need to turn the combat speed up. Okay. Thank you, listeners. Reminder, if you want to get in touch with the show, you can do so at DeepListensPod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We've got our comment sections and deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. You can support the show on patreon.com/deeplistens. Till next time, peace.
Break it